5:12 local time. The ocean is calm, almost unnaturally still. A U.S. Navy carrier strike group moves steadily across open water. At the center, the aircraft carrier dominates the formation, massive, controlled, and quiet. Its wide flight deck stretches like a floating runway, while destroyers hold precise positions along the outer perimeter. Slightly behind, a guided missile cruiser monitors the rear sector. High above, an airborne early warning aircraft circles methodically, its radar scanning hundreds of miles in every direction. Everything feels routine. Then the sonar room picks up something unusual. A faint metallic rhythm. Soft, slow, mechanical. At first, it blends into the ocean's constant background. Distant currents, shifting layers of water, the deep hum of the carrier's own propulsion echoing through the sea. But the sonar technician pauses. He adjusts his headset. The sound repeats. A steady, rotating pattern. He tightens the frequency filter and isolates it. The signal sharpens. Propeller cavitation. A submarine. He leans forward, watching the waveform scroll across the screen. Then, another signal appears, slightly offset. A second rhythm. Different spacing, different signature. 2 submarines. The room goes quiet. The technician runs a wider scan. A third contact emerges from the darkness below. 3 submarines. The sonar supervisor steps in closer. Repeat classification. The technician cross-checks everything. Blade count, rotation rate, hull resonance. The system compares the data against known profiles. Seconds pass. Then the result appears. Iranian diesel-electric submarines. 3 of them, and they are already inside the outer defensive screen. Above, the carrier continues forward, steady and unchanged, unaware that 3 silent threats have slipped beneath the strike group's protective layer. Inside the carrier's combat information center, the sonar report arrives. 3 red icons appear beneath the blue formation. Close. Very close. The strike group commander studies the display. Submarines rarely get this close undetected. 3 working together is even more unusual, but their movement tells the real story. They are spreading out. One contact drifts toward the port side. Another moves toward starboard. The third lingers behind. This is not random. This is positioning. Below the surface, the lead submarine glides silently. Inside its control room, the captain watches as the targeting solution refines. Above him, the aircraft carrier is immense, over 1,000 feet of steel and aircraft. But even something that large has weak points. A direct hit isn't always necessary. Back in the carrier's sonar room, the change becomes obvious. The submarines are no longer drifting. They are closing in, spacing themselves farther apart. The sonar supervisor sees it immediately. A triangle, a classic multi-angle setup designed to trap a large target. He reaches for the line. Bridge, sonar, 3 submarine contacts confirmed. Maneuvering inside perimeter. On the bridge, the officer of the deck stiffens. How close? Within effective range. For a moment, the words hang in the air. Then, general quarters. The alarm sounds across the carrier, sharp, urgent, echoing through steel corridors and hangar bays. Crew members move instantly, hatches seal, systems power up. Across the strike group, escort ships accelerate into defensive positions. Helicopter rotors begin spinning. Within seconds, anti-submarine helicopters lift off, racing toward the contact points. But below the surface, the submarines are already in position. Inside the lead submarine, the torpedo officer watches the final solution lock in. Range optimal. Bearing steady. Target acquired. The captain gives a small nod. Prepare tubes. Metal doors slide open. Systems pressurized. Seawater floods the launch chambers. Above them, the carrier continues forward. Still moving, still steady. Unaware that 3 torpedo tubes are now aligned with its hull. Back in the sonar room, a sudden sound cuts through the technician's headset. A sharp burst of propulsion. His eyes widen. Torpedo launch! Then another, and another. 3 launch signatures appear almost simultaneously. 3 submarines, 3 torpedoes, all accelerating through the water toward the center of the formation, toward the carrier. Time to impact less than 2 minutes. Torpedo inbound! The call slices through the combat information center. Every screen flashes red. 3 bright tracks surge across the display, racing through the dark water. The officer of the deck reacts instantly. Hard rudder, full power. Deep below, the propulsion system surges. Massive turbines drive the ship forward, churning the ocean into white turbulence. The carrier begins to turn, slowly, because something this large cannot turn quickly. But even a small shift can mean everything. Around it, the strike group transforms. Destroyers break formation, shifting from patrol to full defense. On the portside destroyer, the anti-submarine warfare officer locks onto the incoming tracks, watching the lines close in. 3 incoming weapons, 3 separate approach paths, all converging with precision. The officer's voice remains steady. Deploy acoustic countermeasures. Within seconds, cylindrical decoys launch from the destroyer's hull. They hit the water and sink fast. Then they activate. The ocean fills with sound. Artificial propellers spin to life. Simulated engines hum beneath the surface. False cavitation patterns spread through the water, creating a maze of misleading signals. To a torpedo's guidance system, these decoys look like fresh targets, but the incoming weapons don't break off. Inside the submarines, operators watch their tracking screens. The torpedoes detect the decoys instantly, but beyond the noise, one signal stands out. The carrier. A vessel of that size produces a massive acoustic footprint. Even in a sea of interference, it dominates the soundscape like a storm underwater. The torpedoes stay locked. Above the surface, the strike group escalates its response. Helicopters launch from 2 destroyers, racing low across the waves. Each aircraft carries a full anti-submarine loadout, sonar buoys, torpedoes, depth charges. As they reach the area, crews begin dropping sonar buoys in rapid succession. One after another, the sensors hit the water, forming a wide listening network across the ocean. Back in the carrier's sonar room, the new data streams in. 3 submarine contacts, still active, still close. The helicopters tighten their search grid. One pilot leans toward his display. Contact confirmed. Submarine directly below, increasing depth, slow speed, attempting to evade. A pause. Prepare depth charges. Back aboard the carrier, the countdown continues. 1 minute, 50 seconds. The torpedoes are now deep inside the defensive perimeter. Decoys not diverting, someone reports. On the portside destroyer, the captain makes a call. Deploy anti-torpedo interceptor. A compact launcher fires. A small defensive weapon drops into the sea and accelerates instantly. Unlike standard torpedoes, it hunts other torpedoes. On the sonar display, 2 signals rush toward each other. Then, an underwater blast. The first incoming torpedo vanishes. 1 down, 2 remain. Above, the helicopters strike. Depth charges fall. Moments later, the ocean erupts. Shockwaves ripple through the water. Inside one submarine, the hull shudders as the pressure wave rolls through. Lights flicker. Crew members brace. Maintain course, the captain orders. Above, the helicopters circle for another pass. Back in the carrier's combat center, something changes. The second torpedo begins to drift. The decoys are finally taking effect. Its guidance system struggles, picking up multiple signals. For a brief moment, it hesitates. Then it turns. The torpedo veers sharply away from the carrier and locks onto a decoy. Seconds later, another explosion. The decoy disappears in a burst of bubbles. Second threat neutralized. But the third torpedo is different. It has ignored everything. No deviation, no hesitation. Still coming. Fast. On the tactical display, a single red line cuts straight toward the carrier. 500 meters. Final torpedo still tracking carrier. Around the formation, ships maneuver aggressively. Helicopters thunder overhead. The ocean churns with countermeasures and detonations. But beneath it all, the last torpedo continues its run. 300 meters. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tension becomes almost tangible. Every eye is fixed on the screen. Everyone understands what is at stake. Carriers are built to endure damage, reinforced hulls, compartmentalized interiors, systems designed for survival. But a modern torpedo doesn't just strike, it detonates beneath. The blast creates a massive gas bubble, lifting the hull and dropping it with destructive force. Even without a direct hit, it can damage propulsion, bend structures, or disable critical systems. 250 meters. On the bridge, the captain remains composed. Maintain turn. The carrier continues to pivot. Its propellers churn the sea into white turbulence. Every meter of movement changes the geometry. Even a slight shift could alter where the torpedo detonates. Back in the combat center, activate acoustic jammer. Beneath the hull, a powerful system comes online, flooding the water with intense interference. The ocean becomes a storm of distorted signals, false echoes, overlapping frequencies, confusion. But the torpedo keeps coming, 200 meters. In the sonar room, the technician listens through the noise. The sharp whine of the torpedo cuts through everything. Still tracking carrier. 180 meters, and closing. The jammer intensifies. For a brief moment, the torpedo signal flickers across the display. A small disruption, but enough to matter. Its guidance system struggles, trying to make sense of the chaotic acoustic environment. For the first time since launch, it hesitates. 150 meters. Inside the torpedo, its onboard system recalculates. The carrier is still the strongest signal, but now it's buried under layers of interference. The weapon adjusts and pushes forward again, 130 meters. The carrier's engines thunder as the ship continues its turn. Helicopters circle above, locked onto the unfolding moment. Destroyers push closer, trying to shield the carrier, but none can intercept in time. 100 meters. On the nearest destroyer, the anti-torpedo operator makes the call. Launch interceptor. A second defensive torpedo fires. It hits the water and accelerates instantly, cutting through the ocean toward the threat. Now two weapons race toward each other beneath the surface. One closing in on the carrier, the other hunting it down. 80 meters. Inside the Combat Information Center, two fast-moving tracks converge on the screen. 50 meters. Then, an underwater explosion rips through the ocean. The surface erupts into a towering column of foam and spray. The shockwave rolls outward, shaking the water with immense force. Inside the carrier, the hull vibrates from the distant blast. For a few seconds, every sonar display fills with static. Silence. Then the noise clears. The torpedo track is gone. Intercept successful. The carrier survives. But the situation isn't over. On the sonar screen, 3 contacts still remain. 3 submarines, still beneath the strike group. Only now, they've been exposed. The commander studies the display. The defensive phase is finished. Now the hunt begins. The moment the final torpedo disappears, the atmosphere shifts. No hesitation. No delay. Engage hostile submarines. Across the strike group, anti-submarine systems move into full pursuit. Above the ocean, helicopters descend lower. One deploys its dipping sonar. A cable drops into the sea, carrying a powerful sensor beneath the surface. Seconds pass. Then, a clear return. Metallic, distinct. Contact confirmed. Submarine bearing 2-1. No time wasted. A lightweight torpedo drops from the helicopter and enters the water. Within moments, it activates and begins searching. Below, inside the submarine, the crew hears it. A sharp pulse. Then the unmistakable sound of an incoming weapon. Evasive maneuver. The submarine tilts and dives, trying to slip deeper into the darkness. But diesel-electric submarines trade speed for silence. They are quiet, not fast. The torpedo locks on. Distance closes rapidly. Then, another underwater detonation. Above, the sea erupts again, foam and bubbles breaking the surface. Back on the strike group's displays, 1 contact disappears. First submarine destroyed, 2 remain. One of the surviving submarines turns sharply south, increasing speed. Inside, the crew pushes for distance, hoping the chaos creates an opening. But the strike group is already reacting. A guided missile destroyer accelerates to cut off the escape. Its sonar locks onto the target almost immediately. The net is tightening. The destroyer's captain doesn't hesitate. Launch torpedo. A powerful anti-submarine weapon fires and drops into the sea, accelerating almost instantly as it begins its search. Below the surface, inside the Iranian submarine, the sonar operator hears it within seconds. Another incoming threat. The captain reacts quickly. Deploy countermeasures. Acoustic decoys are released, false signals designed to confuse the weapon and draw it away. For a moment, the water fills with competing echoes. But this torpedo is different. It analyzes the environment, filtering out the noise. One by one, it dismisses the decoys and locks onto the real target. There is no escape. Moments later, the ocean convulses with another violent underwater explosion. On the strike group's display, the second contact disappears. 2 submarines down, 1 remains. The final submarine dives sharply toward the seabed. Engines cut. Movement stops. The vessel becomes almost invisible. Silent, motionless, blending with the ocean floor. On sonar, it nearly vanishes. The crew hopes stillness will save them. For a few minutes, the water grows quiet again. Above, helicopters circle patiently. Sonar operators scan for the faintest trace of sound. Then, a subtle disturbance, barely noticeable. A slight metallic shift. Possible contact bearing 090. Another sonar buoy splashes into the water. Seconds later, the signal sharpens. The submarine is still there. Hidden, but not hidden enough. The helicopter crew prepares their final strike. A torpedo drops into the ocean. It activates immediately, sweeping the seabed with active sonar. The silent submarine appears clearly in its sensors. There is no time left. Seconds later, a final explosion rolls across the ocean floor. The water above erupts, then settles. On every sonar screen, the last contact disappears. 3 submarines engaged, all 3 gone. For a moment, the ocean becomes eerily still. Foam spreads across the surface where the last detonation occurred, slowly fading into the deep blue. Inside the carrier's Combat Information Center, operators watch their displays closely. No propulsion noise, no hull resonance, no movement. The third submarine is gone. On the tactical screen, the red markers that once signaled danger have vanished. Only blue symbols remain. The commander studies the display before speaking. Maintain sonar sweep. No one relaxes yet. Underwater encounters rarely end cleanly. Silence can be deceptive. Helicopters continue circling. More sonar buoys are deployed, expanding the listening network. The ocean becomes a wide grid of sensors. Inside the sonar room, technicians monitor the incoming streams. Each buoy feeds data back to the ships. Every sound is analyzed. Minutes pass, nothing. No propellers, no movement, only the distant echo of the strike group's own engines moving through the water. On the bridge, the captain looks out over the calm sea. Just minutes earlier, 3 incoming weapons had been racing through this same water. Now, it looks untouched, but everyone on board knows how close it was. Below deck, damage control teams run checks. Propulsion systems, stable. Rudder response, normal. Hull integrity, intact. No damage. Around the carrier, the formation begins to settle. Destroyers return to position. The cruiser moves back into place behind the carrier. Helicopters land one by one, guided carefully onto their decks. On the tactical display, the formation stabilizes, but the search continues. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, still nothing. Finally, the sonar supervisor removes his headset. No additional contacts detected. The commander gives a single nod. The immediate threat is gone. Across the ship, the tension begins to ease slightly, but the lesson remains sharp. The entire engagement lasted less than 10 minutes. From the first launch to the final detonation, everything unfolded at incredible speed. Every system was tested. Sonar detected the threat. Destroyers deployed countermeasures. Helicopters hunted below the surface. Interceptors neutralized incoming weapons. Layer by layer, the defense worked exactly as designed. Back in the sonar room, the technician scrolls through the recorded data. 3 launches, 3 tracks, 3 contacts. All gone. Outside, the carrier continues forward, cutting cleanly through the open ocean. Its long white wake stretches behind it. From a distance, the strike group looks unchanged, calm, ordered, routine. But beneath the surface, on the ocean floor, the remains of 3 submarines now rest in silence. Their ambush lasted only minutes. The strike group came through without losing a single ship, and the carrier, the primary target, never even slowed down.